My boyfriend told me if I ever looked our neighbor in the eye, we'd have to leave our home forever. Last night, I broke his one rule and saw what was happening through the window. Now I don't know who I should be more afraid of, the stranger or the man I love. The rain began its nightly ritual, a soft, insistent drumming against the window panes of Elias and Clara's suburban home. It wasn't a storm, merely a persistent drizzle, enough to slick the asphalt outside to obsidian, to blur the streetlights into hazy halos. A low hum, almost imperceptible, resonated through the floorboards, a sound Elias usually attributed to the old house settling, or perhaps the distant thrum of the city's electric grid. Tonight, it felt different, a deep bass note in the quiet symphony of the sleeping neighborhood. Clara sat bolt upright in bed, eyes wide, breath catching in her throat. Elias stirred, a groan rumbling in his chest. "He just did it again," she whispered, the words barely audible over the rain. Elias blinked, pushing sleep from his eyes. "Who did what?" "Mr. Henderson. 4B. His light. On the dot. 2:32 a.m. Every night. For 3 weeks." Her voice, though hushed, carried an edge of frantic energy. Elias squinted at the digital clock on the nightstand. 2:32 a.m. "Clara, he's an old man. He probably has a routine. Maybe he takes his meds, gets a drink of water." He tried to infuse his tone with calm, a soothing balm for her growing anxiety. She shook her head, a tremor running through her. "It's not just him. The sprinklers across the street? 3:05 a.m. Every house. Simultaneously. The paper delivery van? Always at 4:02 a.m. The same turn, the same speed, the same pause at each driveway." Her fingers dug into the mattress, knuckles white. "It's too perfect, Elias. Too programmed." He reached for her hand, his touch meant to reassure. "Honey, it's a quiet neighborhood. People are creatures of habit." She pulled away sharply. Habit? Or instruction? What if these aren't people, Elias? What if they're placeholders? The word hung in the air, a cold, sharp shard in the otherwise warm bedroom. Elias frowned, pushing himself up on an elbow. "Placeholders for what?" "I don't know," she breathed, her voice cracking. "But something is wrong." Clara didn't sleep that night, nor many after. Elias would find her hunched over her laptop in the pre-dawn hours, a collection of notebooks fanned out around her. Each page was a meticulous grid, filled with tiny, precise notations. Timestamps, movements, durations. "The Petersons' dog," she announced one morning, not looking up from her screen. "Barks at 7:01 a.m. Exactly 3 barks. Then silence. The mailman. 11:37 a.m. Not 11:36. Not 11:38. His route never varies by a single second." Elias watched her, a knot tightening in his stomach. He saw the dark circles under her eyes, the way her hands trembled when she poured her coffee. He wanted to dismiss it, to call it stress, paranoia, the lingering effects of a demanding job. But the sheer volume of her data, the obsessive detail, began to chip away at his skepticism. "You've been up all night again," he observed, his voice soft, an attempt to bridge the growing chasm between them. She finally looked up, her gaze distant, fixed on something beyond the walls. "I saw it last night. Elias. All of them." He waited, a chill snaking up his spine. "At midnight," she continued, her voice a strained whisper. The rain had stopped. "I looked out the window. Every single neighbor. Every house on the block. They were standing on their lawns." "Doing what?" he asked, the words catching in his throat. "Nothing," she replied, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. "Just standing. Barefoot. Facing the moon. Not moving. Not making a sound." A shiver ran through Elias. He remembered the low hum, the unsettling quiet. "Mr. Henderson," she went on, her eyes wide, haunted. "He was directly across from us. On his lawn. And he looked at me." Elias felt a prickle of dread. "He saw you looking?" "He looked through me," she corrected, her voice barely audible. "His eyes. They were flat. Like glass. No pupils. No depth. Just black, empty circles." She shuddered, wrapping her arms around herself. Like a doll's eyes. The image lodged itself in Elias's mind, a disturbing counterpoint to the rational explanations he desperately clung to. He remembered the feeling of being watched, the unnatural stillness of the neighborhood. That evening, a quiet tension settled between them. Elias found himself checking the locks, peering through the blinds. He tried to engage Clara in conversation, to pull her back from the precipice, but her focus remained external, her gaze darting towards the windows. We need to talk about this, he urged, his voice low, when she came back from the bathroom. She stopped in the hallway, her back to him. Talk about what? He walked closer, reaching for her shoulder. This obsession. It's consuming you. She turned, and for a terrifying second, her eyes held the same flat, vacant quality she described in Mr. Henderson. A jolt of fear shot through him. Then, the spark returned, a flicker of her usual self. Obsession? She repeated, her voice a strange hollow echo of his own. It's consuming you. Her words came out clipped, a fraction too late, as if processed through a slow, digital filter. Elias froze, his hand still hovering in the air. Clara! She blinked, then a faint smile touched her lips, a forced, unfamiliar gesture. Just tired, I guess. He stared at her, a cold dread seeping into his bones. His partner, the woman he loved, had just mimicked his own words, with an uncanny delayed precision. He remembered her earlier trembling question. What if these aren't people, but placeholders? A terrifying thought began to bloom in his mind. Later that night, as Clara slept restlessly beside him, Elias found himself watching her, a new, horrifying question forming in his mind. He reached out, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw, then her neck. He felt the soft skin, the pulse beneath. He pressed gently, searching, an irrational primal fear guiding his touch. Seams. He looked for seams, for an unnatural line, a place where the skin might peel back. The thought was monstrous, but it had taken root. The next morning, the air in the house felt thick, charged with unspoken terror. Elias tried to act normal, to make coffee, to read the news. But every creak of the floorboards, every rustle outside, sent his heart racing. He caught Clara staring at him from across the kitchen table, her expression unreadable. What are you doing? He asked, his voice tighter than he intended. She didn't answer immediately. Her head tilted, as if listening to something only she could hear. Then, a faint smile, unsettlingly serene, spread across her face. What are you doing? She echoed, her voice flat, devoid of inflection. A 5-second delay, Elias noted, his blood running cold. Like a recording played back. He pushed back from the table, the scrape of his chair loud in the sudden silence. That's not funny, Clara. Her smile remained fixed. That's not funny, Clara. He felt a wave of nausea. He needed to get out, to breathe. He grabbed his keys, muttered something about needing groceries. As he walked out the door, he heard her voice, a faint metallic whisper, repeating his words, needing groceries. He drove aimlessly, the suburban streets feeling alien, the houses standing like silent sentinels. He passed Mr. Henderson's house, then the Petersons. He saw a woman watering her lawn, her movements slow, deliberate, almost mechanical. He sped up, needing to escape the suffocating precision of it all. He returned to find Clara in the living room, sitting on the sofa, staring at the wall. Her posture was rigid, her hands resting in her lap, palms up. Her eyes were wide, unblinking. The television was off. The room was silent, save for the low persistent hum from beneath the house. Clara? He asked, his voice trembling. She didn't respond. Her gaze remained fixed on the blank wall, unwavering. Her face was devoid of expression, a perfect, empty canvas. He saw it then, the terrifying echo of the neighbors on their lawns, staring at the moon. She had entered their idle state. He walked over to her, his heart pounding against his ribs. He knelt, placing a hand on her knee. Her skin felt cool, almost clammy. No reaction. He snapped his fingers in front of her face. Nothing. Her eyes held the same flat, vacant quality he'd seen in Mr. Henderson. A scream tore through his throat, but it came out as a choked sob. He couldn't breathe. He backed away, stumbling, his gaze darting around the room, searching for an explanation, a way out. The low hum seemed to intensify, vibrating through the very air. He remembered the hum. Always there, beneath the house. He rushed to the basement door, flung it open. The smell of damp earth and something metallic, electrical, filled his nostrils. He descended the rickety wooden steps, his flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. The basement was different. The concrete floor felt too smooth, too even. The walls, usually rough stone, now looked like reinforced steel, seamless and cold. And in the center, where the ancient stone foundation should have been, stood a series of server racks. Tall, black monoliths, humming with a silent, powerful energy. Wires snaked across the floor, glowing with faint, pulsing lights. Fans whirred, pushing cool air through the vents. This was the source of the hum. This was the engine. He stared, his mind reeling. A server rack. Cooling system. In his basement. Beneath his house. The foundation was gone, replaced by this cold, calculating machine. He reached out, his fingers brushing against a cool metal panel. A jolt, not electrical, but of pure, unadulterated terror, shot through him. He scrambled back up the stairs, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He found Clara still on the sofa, still staring at the wall. He looked out the window. The streetlights flickered, not a natural flicker, but a rhythmic pulse, like a subtle digital distortion. The sky above, usually a tapestry of stars on a clear night, seemed to ripple at the edges, a faint, almost imperceptible shimmer, like a screen struggling to render a complex image. The entire neighborhood, he realized with a sickening certainty, was a localized, simulated containment zone. He had to get out. He had to. He grabbed his car keys, his wallet, anything he could think of. He looked at Clara one last time, her face a mask of serene emptiness. A silent tear escaped his eye. He couldn't save her. She was already gone. He burst out the front door, the chilling silence of the street pressing in on him. He jumped into his car, fumbling with the ignition. The engine roared to life, a comforting, familiar sound. He punched the city limits into the GPS, his hands shaking. The car sped down the familiar streets, past the perfectly manicured lawns, the unblinking houses. He drove faster, pushing the old sedan to its limits. The GPS voice, calm and detached, directed him. He saw the sign for the highway, the promise of escape. He turned, the tires squealing. Then, the GPS rerouted. Recalculating, the voice stated. Turn left. He ignored it, pressing harder on the accelerator. The highway exit was right there. He could see it. Turn left, the voice repeated, a subtle insistence in its tone. He felt the wheel tug, a gentle, inexorable pull. The car veered, not onto the highway, but onto a smaller, residential street. He fought it, his muscles straining, but the steering wheel resisted, guiding him with an unseen force. He drove, confusion and terror battling for dominance. The streets became familiar again. He passed the same houses, the same perfectly trimmed hedges. He saw Mr. Henderson's light, now off. He saw his own house, standing silent and dark. The GPS chimed. You have arrived at your destination. He was back. Back at his front door. Every single time. He tried again. And again. Each desperate drive ended the same way, the car's invisible leash pulling him back to the center of his prison. The sun began to rise, painting the sky in soft, artificial hues. The streetlights pulsed their last, then clicked off in perfect synchronicity. The hum from beneath his house seemed to intensify, a low, triumphant thrum. He walked back into the house, his legs heavy, his spirit crushed. Clara was still there, on the sofa, staring at the wall. He was the anomaly. The only organic consciousness left in a neighborhood of hollow, programmed vessels. He was the bug in the system, the last living thought in a world of code. He sat on the floor beside Clara, leaning his head against her unyielding knee. The rain began again, a soft, rhythmic patter against the window. He closed his eyes, the image of Mr. Henderson's flat, empty gaze seared into his memory. He heard the low hum, the endless indifferent murmur of the server racks beneath his feet. He was truly alone. And as the rain continued its lullaby, a chilling thought settled over him. Perhaps as he drifted into an uneasy sleep, his own neighbors were already standing still outside his door, waiting.